Morning. We are back here with the steers, trying to get them moved. Looks like we're gonna be using protein cubes since he smells them. Come on. Nice and slow. Slow, 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 slow. Come on. Come on, red guy. Getting them back into the, back on the home place here. Just a little back, 2.5 acres. Good boys. All right, let me close that gate up and I'll be right back with you. Okay, goodness. That's it, bud. You guys don't get too much because there's actually some good protein in here. So yeah, moving them back onto the home place. We're getting close to D-Day for these boys. You know, we're less than 2 weeks out. I wanted to get them off of that planted annual field for a few reasons. The first is I feel like they really were starting to kind of run out of feed. They still had a decent amount over there, but what I was noticing, my big indicator was, I mean, there were days where certain times of the day that they just weren't looking as full. I feel like I could maybe see more ribs than I should have. This guy, and I talked about him in my last video. That's kind of a bad position for him to be in right now. But if we can get both of these dudes grazing side by side, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, where this is number 2's calf. And I talked about her bull calves, wanting to keep them. The steers always seem to look a lot better. And that's number 1's. Definitely a leggier animal. More height overall, but they just, I mean, he's leggier. He's taller. He doesn't have as much. He definitely has some good fat deposits going. I mean, look at that brisket, right? And you can see kind of around the tail head. It's obviously a lot easier to see the fat and fat deposits on a non-black hided animal. And if we can get some sun, that would be great. But like this little pocket right there, that's a good indicator. Now he's putting on some fat, but this is a big thing for me right here. That little hump is just, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of back fat. And when you look at number 2's steer, not only does he have those fat deposits kind of coming around the tail head, but he's a lot more filled in across the back, a lot more flat across the back, just more rounded across the back. You know, you're seeing less bone. The hip bones and that high tail head, that high forward tail head on number 1's, the red guy, he's more of a bonier animal, you know? And so it's less fat deposits. And he is actually close to a month younger. So he's got a month less of growth. That's something that I continue to remind myself, is he actually, you know, he's well, he was 2 cycles. So he's actually was a little over a month younger than this guy. But, you know, like I said, we're getting close to D-Day. And so filling in all of his bony features, making him more round, making him fatter it's not going to happen here in the next 2 weeks. So it's just trying to get those. I mean, this guy, number 2's steer, was looking like he is now, you know, even a month ago. So it kind of comes back to that genetics of having the mama cows makes a big difference. You know, which mama cow makes a big difference on how these animals are going to finish out, how these steers are going to finish out. And like in my last video, that correlates into the quality of the bull. So like I said, you know, if I wanted to keep my own bull, if I wanted to sell, you know, utility grass finish ability bulls to people, they need to be short, they need to be squatty, they need to be fat, they need to, you know, they need to be wide. Not that these guys don't look good, but they just, I mean, he looks like a steer, you know, he really does. He kind of has that steer look to him. And you know, at a distance, this guy could be passed off as a bull a little bit, less now than he was earlier, just because he's really putting on a lot of fat. So like Mac, you know, Mac the red steer, he is number one's calf, and he is obviously 5 years old. Mac is an older animal. These guys are 2 years old, a little over 2 years old. So they have less time to put on the size that Mac does, but Mac is a big boy. Mac is for a Dexter steer, he's a big dude. And I know that all he's had to do is eat and put on weight, but that just kind of goes to show the genetics that his mom kind of throws into her bull calves. Is they're big dudes. They look great, especially as bulls. They look great because they're tall. But if you're trying to grass finish an animal, a tall, leggy, you know, like Greg Judy says, you can read a dang newspaper underneath him. Whereas someone like this with good gut fill, really big gut fill, short, squatty legs, you couldn't open a magazine underneath him, you know what I'm saying? So number one throws some really good looking calves as far as just kind of that classic, I want a big bull, I want a big steer, you know, a tall, for a Dexter, you know, a tall animal. But when it comes to trying to finish these dudes on grass, the taller they are, the leaner they are, the lankier they are, the harder it's going to be to finish them out. And you know, this is a great, even trying to finish them out, I'm using that steamrolled barley. So they've been having some grain come at him, and he still is just not fattening up like number one's calf, number one's steer here. I mean, the dude is dang near flat all the way across. You know, shoulders, I mean, he's got good back fat. He's ready to go. I'm as much as it's going to suck butchering these animals, I'm not going to get into that. You guys know how much I'm not looking forward to that. I am excited to hear what the butcher has to say about, you know, 21-22 versus 14-22 over there. So, yeah. So, yes, they were running out of feed over there. And a good indicator for me, I got totally sidetracked. A good indicator for me watching them was that they were grazing really, really low. There was some sorghum Sudan over there, but there was a lot of Japanese millet and pearl millet. That's kind of what apparently got the most, whatever, that grew the best. That beat out the Sudan grass for whatever reason this year. Last year I had a majority Sudan grass. This year I had a majority millet, which I was happy to try. I've heard great things about pearl millet, but as a dominating forage, it just was not good for them. I don't think it was putting on enough size. There wasn't enough mass in those skinny millet leaves like there was in those big, fat, dark green, almost looking like corn, like a corn plant like you get with the sorghum Sudans. So a lot of just little skinny millet leaves that when I first turned them in, they were grazing really, really high. You'd see them, you know, eating with their head up, whole mouthfuls of leaves going into their mouth. Well, I'd say the last 3-4 days, I've really been noticing that they spent most of their time grazing like they are now, looking like they are now where they're grazing. Their heads were down. They would still grab millet leaves when they'd find a good set, but they really had kind of gone through and gotten everything that they were really excited about. And when I walked through the field, it was a lot of millet stalks with very few leaves left on it. So that obviously is telling me right there that they are now choosing the low growing forages, the crabgrass, the foxtail, the cool season grasses that were popping up in between all of the warm season annuals. They were now choosing those to eat over kind of the remaining leaves and the remaining stalks and stems of that millet. So will I do millet again? Get away from me, buddy. We're not gonna be friends. We're not gonna be friends. Would I choose millet again in my mix? You know, if I was going for a warm season annual mix again, which I'll get into that in a second, I'm not. I would, yes, I would consider millet as part of the mix, but the problem with broadcast seeding, broadcast and incorporation, is you really are at the mercy of which seeds are getting good seed to soil contact, which seeds are not disappearing from, you know, birds eating them. It's kind of a wash. And I feel like the sorghum Sudan, at least this year, again, the sorghum Sudan that I love to have out there during the summertime, it was outcompeted by the millet. So the only good thing with the millet, oh, look at that fat. That's a good sign right there on this guy. Like I said, he's done. I know he's done. He's ready. And you get a little bit of that on the red steer, but not as much. The only thing I really liked about the millet was the fact that I didn't have to worry about frost. You know, the prussic acid, the cyanide poisoning with sorghum Sudans when you have frosting is a big deal. And that's something to really take seriously. Obviously, the herd, the steers are coming off of that field before I really have to start dealing with frost. I think our first night that they're saying in the forecast right now that we could have frost is still about a week out. So didn't have to worry about that. But last year that was a big dang deal. You know, I had a lot of regrowth over there that the cow herd was going to be on of sorghum Sudans that frosted, and then I had to pull them off of that for at least a 2-week dissipation period, and it was a nightmare trying to decide if it was safe for them to graze. You don't have that with pearl millet. So that was one reason why I really wanted to try the millets this year. But would I do it again in a mix? Yes, I would just go a lot less millet as opposed to the sorghum Sudans and anything else that I was planting, because at the end of the day, I really don't feel like they enjoyed it. It was, they went to that millet after all of the sorghum Sudan had been eaten down to the ground. And like I said, there was still a handful of leaf blades over there, which tells me that it wasn't good enough for them to choose that over cool season grasses. I am excited to see that there's clover popping back in this field. I really did not want to graze this field, guys. This is the back 2.5 acres that the herd, the cow herd, comes home to, and is the last pasture that they are put in as we get into winter, simply because it's usually beat up more. It needs more rest because they spend all winter back here. So I just try and give it more time without livestock on it. But we've got that lean-to building back here. So I figure as we get into late November, as we get into December, closer to January, there's a lot more likelihood that they're going to need a place to get out of the wind, get out of the cold rain, get out of the snow, get out of those winter temperatures. And so having them back here at that time is best. Plus, the water freezes as we start getting later into the year. The 4-acre lease next door is a pain in the butt to get water to, especially if I'm pumping out of the well pit, which is down here, and running garden hose, which freezes every night as we start getting into those frosty temperatures, or I have to truck it down here. So I really did not want to graze this pasture. And I know these guys have less than 2 weeks. It's just the two of them, but this will be the 4th time that this 2.5 acres is grazed this year. Now, 2 out of those 4 times was a very minimal graze. This time is going to be a minimal graze, again, less than 2 weeks with just 2 animals. Last time it was grazed was a minimal graze because it was only half the herd. The rest of the herd had already left to go up to the 16-acre lease, and they were only on here for about 3 weeks. They still did a decent amount of damage. I mean, maybe I shouldn't use damage. That's one reason why this pasture is so green and lush right now, because they actually, the half of the herd that was on here for the 3 weeks did a really good job of taking everything down. And again, this was months ago, so it's had plenty of time to recover, but they took everything down to about half. You don't see a whole lot of foxtail back here like you did in that front pasture, which sat dormant for a lot of the summer and allowed that foxtail to actually head out. And so everything is very palatable. I have a good amount of clover. This actually won't be bad for them to be on finishing. Theoretically, I probably just Could have left them on that 2-acre planted annual field for maybe a week and then brought them back over here for their last 3 weeks. It would have helped put some size on them. They're getting their protein from the clovers. Nice, tender, green, cool season forages obviously are better, higher in energy than, you know, stuff that has been sitting all summer. But yeah, I still need this. I mean, I still need stuff for the cow herd to graze, guys. That's what it came down to. So because I was electing to supplement with the rolled barley, I felt like it was a fair trade to keep them over there where maybe the stuff wasn't as best, getting that rolled barley, and then I'm just bringing them back over here for the last week or so. I'll keep you posted on how stuff turns out with these guys. Truthfully, I don't know if I'm going to do a video of getting them to the butcher. It's not my jam, you know, and so it's just, I'm gonna be mentally in a place that I don't know if I'm gonna feel like sharing a whole lot of that with you guys, because I'm not wanting to do it myself. So I don't know if you're gonna see much. Plus, truthfully, you see me load cows before, and then it's an hour haul up north to the butcher in Story City, Iowa. And as far as loading and unloading at the butcher, it's not going to be anything too exciting. Like I said, they're going into a holding pen for the night. So this could be the last time you see these boys. But like I said, I'll definitely keep you posted on the results once I talk to the butcher and once I get everything back. So yeah, just going to continue to supplement with these guys, give them good water, give them the best life possible, the most relaxing life possible. It's just these two dudes in this 2.5 acres, and it's always gorgeous back here, especially this time of year. Great shade, great sun, quality forage. It's quiet. They're home. They can come up to the barn and hang out if they want. It's just, yeah, it's going to be a good couple weeks for them. So yeah, questions, comments, concerns, sarcastic remarks, leave them down below. You know the drill. And I'll talk to you guys later.